Hello everyone, welcome to Module 2 of the SOLIDWORKS course. In this module we will be looking at all the different SOLIDWORKS features which are used to create components and the solid models. And to begin with, we will start with the Extrude Boss / base and the Extrude Cut. Okay, so let's get straight away to the SOLIDWORKS and let us start a new part file. And let's make sure that we are using the unit system that we want to use for designing this component. I'm using the millimeters, grams, and second system. I'm going to start off with the front plane and create a rectangular sketch. Even before I start beginning the rectangular sketch, I want to create the dimensions as soon as I start making the sketches. In order to do that, we can go to the options, system options, and you should be able to see the sketch. And if you turn on this option that says the enable on screen numeric input on entity creation and click OK. Now if I go and click on the rectangle with the corner option and start creating the rectangle, you would notice the dimensions are automatically attached to that. A little bit of a time saver, so that you don't have to go to the smart dimension and start creating the dimensions. Before releasing the left mouse button, we can input the dimensions. So let us say the width, I want to make it as 100. Then I'm going to hit the tab and I'm going to make the length of the rectangle as 200 millimeters. And once I hit the or input the 200 millimeters value, then I'm going to enter and then let go the mouse, and so that the dimension of the sketch that's already been created with 100 by 200. We can go to the smart dimension and check to make sure that the dimensions we created are indeed the one that we want in the beginning itself. Once we created this rectangle, I'm going to extrude it and assign the depth of 30 millimeters and then click on the check mark to create the first rectangular box. That is as simple as it can get as far as the extrude base or extrude boss operation is concerned. Now I'm going to create another extrude operation on the existing solid model. To begin with, initially we wanted to choose one of the front, top, or the right planes in order to create the sketch, because the sketches, as long as they are not three-dimensional sketches, needs to be created on one of the surfaces or the standard planes. Now since we have the solid model created, I can make use of one of the existing surfaces on the solid model. So if I click on the front face, I can notice that there is a small pop-up window that appears, and there are several options that we can look into this. We can start away with the sketch directly on it, and the model remains in the same orientations. So I'm going to cancel it, discard the changes. Again, if I click on this surface, the front face, and click on normal to option, then the part will orient normal to my viewpoint. Okay, I'm going to go to Control 8, or rather Control 7, to make it into the isometric view. So again, if I want to edit the dimensions, I can just click on anywhere on this part and then click on Edit Feature to adjust the depth, or I can click on the Edit Sketch in order to change the dimensions of the length and the width. Once I make those changes, then I can come out of the exit sketching icon on the top right corner, and the dimensions will take into effect. But I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to cross it out, come out of it. So let's create another extruded feature on this front face. And in order to do that, I will click on this face as we just talked about, click on the normal to option, and I will create another rectangular sketch on this surface as you can notice that the 200 millimeters is automatically constrained, and the one that we need to input is the width of this sketch. So I'm going to input that as 20 millimeters and let the mouse button go away. After that, I can again come back here and to make sure that it is 20 millimeters. And now you can notice the sketch is fully defined. It is always very important to make sure that all your sketches are fully defined before you can apply any features on them. After this, I will go to Feature and click on the Extrude Boss /base, turn the object slightly in the third dimension just to get a better visualization of it. And I will change the depth after making sure that your direction is accurate. I will make this depth as 100 millimeters. I'm going to click on the check mark, and the solid model is again modified to create another extrude feature. And so in the design feature manager tree, you can see the first base extrude operation and then the second extrude feature that we've added. So you can notice that Boss Extrude 1, Boss Extrude 2. Okay, let's take a look at how we can modify this extrude base features. If I right click on the Boss Extrude 2 and click on the edit feature, I can notice that there is an option which says merge result and it's automatically checked. If I uncheck that and then click on the check mark, I can notice that there is a line now that separates these two features here. And what that means is now these two extrude features are no longer related with each other because we have not used the merge option. Also on the design feature manager tree, you can notice that there are now two solid bodies instead of one solid body. If I click on the Boss Extrude 1, that is one solid body. Boss Extrude 2 is another solid body. Okay, this particular feature is useful when we perform the simulation on the components. If we want to create the surface contact between the two surfaces, then we can use this unmerge feature so that we can decide what kind of contact between the two surfaces to create when we perform the simulations on it. Okay, so let me go back again to right clicking Boss Extrude 2, edit feature, and I will merge it. Click OK, and now you can notice that it's just the one solid body. So there is a continuity in the surfaces that we've added onto this existing base of the solid model. So although it has two different features that we used, but it is still just one uniform homogeneous solid model. The next thing we will be looking at is how to adjust the sketching plane. Remember that we started the sketching plane. If I use again the Control-C option, remember we started the sketch on this front face as the rectangular sketch, and then we extruded it in the positive Z direction. Okay, so if I again right click on the Boss Extrude feature, at this time if I choose the Edit Sketch option, you can notice that we can change the sketch dimensions and modify this feature. So instead of 20, let us say if I make it 25 and then come out of the exit sketching mode, then the solid model gets modified automatically. Okay, if I again right click on the Boss Extrude 2 feature, I have these two options that I can play with, the edit feature for the depth and the edit sketch for the dimensions of that sketch. If I expand the Boss Extrude feature, I can notice that there is a sketch which is related to the feature. And if I click on the sketch, again, a small pop-up window appears and I have the option of editing the sketch or editing the sketch plane. If I click on edit sketch plane, I can reselect the sketch plane. Remember, we had selected this front face before adding the feature on it, but instead of this top face, let's say I click on the bottom face and then click OK. As a result, what happens is that the overall height of this block reduces because of the fact that we changed the sketching plane from this face to this face. And if I look at the edit feature, the 100 millimeters depth is still there, but now that 100 millimeter is being referenced from the bottom face because of the fact that we changed the sketching plane as the bottom face. And the 100 millimeters depth is with reference to this bottom face going to the top. And that is the reason why we can see the overall height of this block has been reduced. Okay, so that is the way we can play around with the edit sketch plane. The other things that we can modify in this case is if I again right click on the Boss Extrude feature and click on the edit feature, I can choose the options here as by default it says from sketch plane. But if I say instead of from sketch plane, I can select any other plane. So if I click on the surface /face plane, and if I select this face, the 100 millimeters then is referenced from the top of this plane that we select. And if I click OK, again, the height of the base is back to the original one when we started with. Something again that you can think of, how would you design your solid model. Let me again right click on the Boss Extrude model and go to the edit feature. And I can also choose many of these different options here. By default, the option is set as blind. But if I click on mid plane, you can notice that 100 millimeters distance gets equally divided with respect to the face that we've selected. And so 50 millimeter is added to the top of that face and 50 millimeters is added to the bottom of the face. And if the merged result is checked, if we click on the check mark, now we can notice that 50 millimeters is from the top face distance going to the top and 50 millimeters is going to the bottom. We can verify that using evaluate, measure. If I measure this length, it has to be 50 millimeters. Or if I measure the distance between this face and the very bottom face, it also has to be 50 millimeters, making it the total height of 100 millimeters. If I can go back and change the option by clicking on the edit feature, and instead of mid plane, if I just say blind and click OK, and let us come back to our original solid model. We can also take a look at the option. For example, if I right click on the Boss Extrude feature, or rather if I right click on the sketch 3 and click on the edit sketch plane, and instead of the bottom face, again let's come back to the top face as we had selected and click OK. So 100 millimeters height is from this top face now, so you can see the increase in the height of this L-shaped block. I can right click on the Boss Extrude edit feature, and instead of sketch plane, if I say offset, and if I add some offset distance, let us say 10 millimeters, you can see that the extruded height is lifted by 10 millimeters from the sketch plane as we had selected. And now if I click OK, you can notice that there is a gap between these two surfaces. And accordingly, you would see that now again there are two solid bodies because there is no contact between the two extrude features. So the Boss Extrude 1, Boss Extrude 2. Again, these are the two different extrudes operations which are not connected, and therefore we have the two solid bodies. I will go back again and change the edit feature, and instead of offset, I'm just going to use the sketch plane and click OK to revert back to the original solid model. Let us take a look at another option of the extrude feature. If I click on this face and click on normal to direction, and I want to start sketching a line. Let's say I draw a line in form of a triangular sketch. If I create and assign the dimensions, let's say I want to choose this angle as 80 degrees. To make the sketch fully defined, I can also use this sketch to extrude it by a distance or up to the next face. If I go to features, extrude boss / base, we can see that the sketch is being extruded in the direction that we don't want. So I can always click on the reverse direction option, so it goes down. Instead of blind, if I use the option up to next, it has nothing to find, where up to the next that it should go. So this option is not going to work here. If I click on up to surface, it's looking for an input of up to which surface we want to extend. So if I click this bottom face, so up to that face, the solid model is going to be extracted or extruded. Okay. These are some of the options again we can make use of while creating the extruded feature. So if I say up to surface and select this bottom face, click on the check mark, then the part can be extruded up to that particular face as we selected, and that becomes the Boss Extrude 3 feature. Again, if I click on this cross section of this L shape, oriented normal, and let's say I make another rectangle sketch, something like this. I use the dimension of 30, click OK, and let me orient. We can see that one of these lines is still undefined, and again it can go up and down, and that is why it is not restricted. So again, I'm going to sketch dimension on it and make that 30 as well. So if I orient it in the three-dimensional view, and now if I go to the extrude feature, if I change the direction, you can notice that it's going normal to the sketch plane that we've created, right? That's the default. But let's say I don't want this sketch to be extruded in the normal direction. So I can always choose this input window here that says the direction of extrusion, and I can select either this face or the edge. If I select this edge, first I need to click on this input window here and then click so that the direction gets aligned towards that direction. And then I can either up to surface, and if I select this face, that way I can create this extruded feature along that particular direction because of this edge one selection, and up to the surface, which I have selected the end surface, so the direction of the extrusion is going to be up to that. There is a difference in creating the depth versus the face selection. So anytime if the overall length is changed, then this extruded feature will also be adjusted accordingly. You're going to click OK, and these are some of the different ways of creating the extruded boss / extruded base. Now let's take a look at the Extrude Cut. If I click on the front face again and orient it normal to the viewpoint, and let's say I click on the circle, let's assign some dimensions to that. Let's make it 20, and also give the dimensions from the edges. Let's make it 20. Now we go to the features, and I can choose the option Extrude Cut. Again, several ways of using this Extrude Cut feature. Either we can use the blind depth, and let's say just 10 millimeters, click OK, and I can see that there is a 10 millimeter depth of cut has been created. If I right click on Cut Extrude Edit feature, instead of the blind depth, if I say through all and then click OK, so the hole is going to be cut through all. Again, right click, Edit feature. There are other options which may or may not be available at this point, but if I say up to surface and select the bottom face and then click OK, so that way also you can use the feature up to face. And the reason for doing this against giving the hard dimensions is that if I want to change the dimensions, maybe not in this feature, but here in the Boss Extrude 2, if I say Edit Sketch, and instead of 25, if I say 35, it's going in the upward direction. So we will need to do something else in this feature. But one thing we can notice here again is that your hole also gets adjusted accordingly in this case. That's all for the Extrude Boss /base and the Extrude Cut, and I will see you in the next video.